it's a triple play. New episodes, I couldn't wait. Yeah. Open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AoA, check me out. Look, plugged in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AoA show. I am your host, as always, Ian, along with my boys Isaiah.
Yo, yo, yo.
And Gavin.
Ooh, what is going on?
And today we are here to talk about the God of High School, episode 10, and our analysis of that episode in full. There are three major fights, I guess, that are going on.
Say two.
At two, right? It's two major fights that are going on at this one time. It is MORI versus ILPYO, and it is Park Mugen versus the cult leader, whose name we don't know actually yet, do we?
I don't think so.
Blue hair fuckboy.
Blue hair fuckboy. Yeah, so that's who
Or do you
he's
have white hair?
I think it was white. Yeah,
White guy.
Okay.
I was just running.
It's irrelevant.
I was just running with it though. Anyway, so those are the two main fights that are going on now. This episode had been pumped up. I'd seen before as one of the better ones in terms of fighting. I would have to say it was a pretty good fight. You know, all around. A lot of like godly powers, for lack of a better term, had showed up in this one as well. But obviously between the fight with Mugen and the cult leader. But even a little bit of that got unlocked later on with ILPYO and MORI as well. So we're going to jump into it and share with you guys our unfiltered thoughts. But remember, if you guys enjoy the content today, that you are liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell, sharing with your friends, and commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of this episode, and what did you think of our discussion at large? Make sure if you guys want to listen only, you can hit us up on the audio-only platforms. That's Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, etc. Make sure you guys are throwing a follow on there. Hit us up on the socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You could also join our community Discord to, conversate with some other people in the community. And if you wanted to support us on Patreon, that's patreon.com/AoA show. And as always, all these links are found in the description down below. But anyway, let's hop into it. What do we think? Gavin, hit me up.
So, I mean, it had some dope fights, and that's honestly what we were expecting going into it, and happy that they did fulfill on it. And yeah, it was really cool. It's, I don't want to just be excuse me. I don't want to be critical on like the negative parts, but like, I kind of don't.
Let it begin.
It really hits me with like the Dowie fight when he was going against that other chick, like the martial arts. I feel like they're just so short to what they should be. And it's like one of those things where we mentioned, I think in the last episode, where they're like, introduce said character, give them like both a little bit of backstory to why they're fighting, and then not even a minute after said backstory, they just get iced. And you're like, all right, was that like really needed? And I understand the reasoning behind it, because that is like the most important part of most like fighting shows, is knowing their backstories, their reason for fighting, and then watching said fight get fleshed out and feel that raw emotion. But what's missing in the God of High School is that they're doing the first half of it, but then they're not delivering on the emotional kick that should be like had after you said like the backstory, if that makes sense. Like, they're introducing this character, they're giving them the reason why they're fighting, and then instead of really like honing in on that moment and that emotion on why they're fighting, it's like, bam, next kick, they're dead, we're on to the next one. And it's like, okay, if you're going to do that, then why are you trying to pump up their character in a way where it doesn't matter, because they're just going to like die? And I get it. Like, you could say, well, in the end, they're going to die, or they're not going to die, but like in the end, they're going to lose anyway. So what's the point of like harping in on that moment? Well, it's quite literally me as a viewer feeling more emotions towards said fight and really like splitting my mind in decisions on who is going to win. Like, is it going to be Dowie? Is it going to be this other chick? And it's like, they're not doing that. It's like, oh, it's going to be Dowie, and we just kind of already know. Like, you can really call the fights as they like are, unless you get to the like MORI and ILPYO fight where you're like, this one can be decisive, it can go any other way, because they again do this like what I just mentioned prior. They're putting it in the correct context, where it's like, we're giving you a bit of ILPYO, we're giving you a little bit of MORI. I mean, with the blending of the fight going on outside, but irrelevant of what I'm talking about. But they're harping in on why they are fighting, and then fleshing out said emotions through the fight, where you really feel like, oh my God, like, not only what's going to happen, but I just feel like bad. Like, I'm swayed for both of them and for different reasons. I want ILPYO to almost win because he has a heartwarming story, and you're just like, I feel for you, dude. And same thing with Mori. You're like, I feel for you even more. But like when they're fighting, it makes those kicks and punches that they're like hitting on each other even more like substantial for me as a viewer. And that's what I like. And in this episode, that was the part that I really appreciated and enjoyed. But then again, it's like you get prior fights like Dowie and other contestants where they quite literally just need to like fast forward to like the irrelevant scenes. And it's like, I get that, but in some sense, I just want more, or just not even have it in the episode or like in the show in some way. Like, I just feel like they could have executed it differently to make it not only more entertaining, but kind of like hit more emotional beats. So I guess that's like kind of my Spark Note version on, you know, this episode and now to like the halfway point.
No, that's fair. I feel like we've talked about this at length
We have.
I believe episode 7 review. You know, about this exact scenario. And not that you're saying this, but you know, to be fair, for anyone that's like, hey, you guys are going around the same treatment again, I would assume that you'd agree. I think that in this episode, it wasn't nearly as bad as when we had initially bashed in episode 7. It was just a very small thing. Yeah. And there were some curiosities that came up during it for me, such as Dewey's new training. We said, okay, what's up with that? Is that his Chariot? Whatever, because it's like, it's interesting because we have ILPYO using his fire kicks and Jin Mori using his dragon kicks and like all these things that you would maybe think is a Chariot thing, but then all of a sudden you notice that there's, you know what I mean? Like there's more to it, like hence the end of this episode. Like, okay, is that the Chariot? And that is the other thing just something they were able to do naturally? I don't know. Is that like is it like a lower version of the Chariot and it's not like a fully unlocked form, etc.? So there are definitely some questions there, and I don't know if Dewey is completely unlocked his like full Chariot because it's just a different type of training. And I'm also curious to know who's training him. And like in the back of my mind, for some reason, I just want to think it's Mugen because I don't know. They have this like weird relationship with those two where he just kind of tells Dewey shit like all the time. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that'd be cool if we found that out. But I mean, who knows what he's been doing? He got a cut on his cheek, so it must have been very rigorous training as well. But yeah, no, I do agree with you. You know, with that first fight, especially, like we kind of knew. But I think my biggest gripe, and again, I said this in episode 7 when we reviewed it. I said, okay, I think I get it now that it's like anything that isn't a major fight is clearly going to get this treatment. But all I ask now, you know, because I get it, whatever. Not that I agree, but I get it. All I ask now is that the fights that are the relevant ones, i.e. Mori versus, you know, ILPYO or Mugen versus Raid Boss or whoever the fuck, you know what I mean? Like that those fights are fleshed out and I feel for them. And to be fair, I do think that they hit those points for me in this episode. I really did like we'll praise it up and down. The animation was gorgeous for the fight between, you know, them in the ring and all that kind of stuff. But I did feel for ILPYO, you know, when he was going through, and there was almost a part of me that wanted him to win that fight, believe it or not. It was almost like competing for who was the worthy successor in some weird shape or form. But it was really cool to see that in the end he was trying to help him, but then he's like, well, I still got to win though, you know, but he's like, he's trying to help him grow throughout that. I just think their relationship is something that I'm interested in seeing flourish. But I don't know, Isaiah, what do you think? Overall impressions of the episode?
I'm kind of in the similar-ish camp to Gavin, where that fight, like the ILPYO, is that how was his
somebody
name
was
said?
saying in the comments, because I was initially saying ILPYO, but then somebody was
His
like, no,
name's
it's
driving me fucking nuts,
ILPYO,
dude.
like P. So I was like, okay, I'm just calling
ILPYO.
it
I'm saying ILPYO.
Go for
It's done. ILPYO and Mori's fight was fantastic. I loved it. And I think like sort of to what you were saying, like that's why, because like that is the fight of like that you're supposed to have the most weight or whatever. It's the, you know, the main entree, if you will, of this episode. So it makes sense. Everything is decked out for it. Of course, it's going to look good. I am kind of in a similar boat with Gavin, to where it's like by comparison, because they're literally not only in the same episode, but like literally back to back, it makes Dowie's fight feel kind of pointless, or kind of like, to be honest, you could have had him win off screen and just told me he won.
Exactly.
And like, because there's no like it. And I get that, like, if introducing those secondary characters is just for the introduction, and it's like, oh, they'll become relevant later. It's like, but you could just do that later then. Because literally having them come on screen, at least to me, only to immediately lose, kind of flubs the power scaling thing for me. Because it's like, all right, did she only get to this semifinals because everybody else she fought was so weak. Because like relatively, that fight didn't look that, grueling of a fight, right? Like Dawi's had tougher. His fight with Mori looked more intense and more like demanding than that fight. So it like kind of it like shakes up the weight a little bit for me. I'm like, all right, so what? He just like essentially like punched her a few times and she's down, and it's like, okay, is she gonna? I don't know. It just feels weird. So like, why do that when you could just introduce her later and have her do the whole thing, and you know what I mean, and give that character like the validity then.
I do want to say though one thing, just to play devil's advocate on this, because like I said, I don't think this episode was nearly as much as of an offender of this than they were in episode 7. And one thing I will say is that in her backstory, it was kind of meshed together with ILPYO's backstory as well, in terms of like why he beat the shit out of Jigal for fucking breaking, which I'm assuming is the martial artist girl's sister. I don't know. It seemed like the relationship, her legs permanently, and like her story kind of seemed to be intertwined with his. So like, and we kind of need to know ILPYO's for that fight, because they flesh it out. So to be fair, just, because I know people will be thinking this, like, I do think that story was a little more justified than like, say, again, once from like episode 7, being that it kind of intertwined with a character that we know is very relevant to the show.
Well,
but that's
so
just
that's
one rebuttal
sort of my
that
point is that like her backstory comes out because it's related to her sister and ILPYO. Both of those characters who actually have more weight in this episode in terms of like the origin story relating to the fight, because then she almost immediately loses said fight, and it's like, okay, what was the point of seeing that to like show that they're related? We know that because they're on the same team, and if you just go into ILPYO's backstory, you still get all the same things. Like my point is in showing that it's just not necessary if you're going to like counterbalance almost, I feel like, with like her just then being X'd out, you know?
I think that's it too. Like the fact that that a lot of the times they're so quickly dismantled definitely is annoying too, because it's like if she was able to have that second win like she does, she gets hit into like the turnbuckle and then she's like, no, I have to do this. Because for me, it was, again, being that it was intertwined with ILPYO's story, made it hold a little more weight in terms of her backstory, because it was like, okay, we're doing this for the same reason. Like we're trying to save my sister. So I need to do this not only for you, but for myself and for her. So like it gave her character a little more weight, and I saw as to why they fleshed it out a little bit. But again, I think my gripe would come if there's one to be had, would be the fact that when she has her like awakening moment, it's literally just like a jump kick and like, you know what I mean?
And I think
like
what it is for me is that because like
a little fleshed out.
the more we get into the show, if I'm being 100% honest, the more I'm kind of losing interest in the whole God, the whole secondary, I guess, overarching plot of what's going on here with like the cult and the God and stuff. Like I really, really fuck with like the tournament stuff and like the fighting and like the main cast of characters, whatever, and all this stuff. If this show, to be honest, like was just here and like we really just went into this, that stuff would make sense, and then you'd have more time to flesh out said moments like that, or maybe give those characters more time in the ring or on screen or whatever. And in my mind, like I would prefer that. I think that would feel more complete, to where it's like, because we're bouncing back between these two, and one thing on just the scale here is like so vastly, stupidly larger than the other. It's like we go to this thing, which is like this close knit, tight, like ground level, grapple, between these kids and these characters. And then one is like, God is shoving a sword into the city, and like this man is, drinking beer and blowing his whole inventory of weapons into a circle that explodes magic. And then like, it's like, I don't know what this is. And I'm like, kind of don't really care. Like, I just want to go back to this. And I, to be honest, I'd rather you either cut that or push that back and like give that martial arts girl, give her more time. Like this whole episode, I feel like we could have done half of it with Dawi and her fight, and the other half with Mori and ILPYO's fight, right? Because like that smaller ground level stuff is just so much more entertaining to me, and so much more because it's like, all right, I know what's going on and I get it, and I can be like taken in by it and like be consumed by it much easier than it's like, I don't know what,
it
definitely
makes it a little more relatable in that sense, being that it's like, okay, this is like, I don't know, for me, it's like, it kind of like, not dumbs it down is the word, but like, yeah, when it goes like too far.
Well, it's just more understandable.
Like,
because like I can watch this tournament and be like, all right, I know what's going on. I couldn't tell you like what is going. If you ask me what's going on, it's like these guys with Cheriak are fighting these guys with Cheriak. I guess but I don't know. Like,
sure,
one of them hates Chariot users, which is kind of weird because they're all using Chariot, so we don't hate Chariot users that much.
They hate. So that was interesting, and one thing that I did appreciate in this, because one of my major gripes throughout this season so far has been the lack of information that we've received and then expected to play along. And a lot of people say, well, listen, just give it some time. They're going to flesh it out. And I'm like, okay, I understand that, but I need them to flesh it out with not too much time to waste, because then that's that much more time that I'm like out of the loop here, you know, and like I potentially might lose interest. You got to tell me eventually. So I do appreciate, especially in a couple of these last episodes, and especially Mugen specifically, who actually is growing on me as one of my favorite characters, because I love how mysterious this dude is, and like just like how nonchalant, I don't give a fuck he is. You know what I mean? Like he's just this perfect antagonist to me, or no, not antagonist, I'm sorry, like anti-hero style thing to me, and I really fuck with him, but that's another point. But I do appreciate how he's giving like these brief history lessons through like in like these little snippets of clip. And one thing that, you know, he did explain was that it's not that they hate Chariot users specifically, but any other Chariot user that isn't in their cult, because they only believe in one god in a monotheistic religion, whereas everybody else believes in multiple gods and is borrowing their power from them. And they're like, no. You're not allowed to borrow your power from any other god because they don't exist or whatever the case is. So fuck everyone else who's trying to use this ability. Only if they're trying to get the ability from our god will we allow it. So they use it and they're cool with it, but like they think it's like an inverse and perverted way of using it if it's not.
I guess it's just like, to be honest, it is kind of like too little too late, where it's like they've strung me along with the God thing for so long that like I said, I'm like, I just kind of care about the fighting. Like I'm just not as invested in the overarching plot anymore. Like I don't like, it's cool. And like, but again, like even in terms of fighting, it's like so much easier to follow the tournament fights and like the character motivations, what they want. Like literally, like this episode, bro, that fight was like literally just a clusterfuck of shit happening. Literally, like they summoned a giant sword and then summoned God to pummel the sword into the city, and this man spit out a whole thing of weapons and magic into the sword with his band playing behind him, and everybody's sweating and exploding, and then like literally it was like I feel like I'm crazy, but like I couldn't have told you what the fuck was happening. Whereas like I could vividly describe to you that, that's exactly how I described it, because that's what it felt like, where I could literally like beat for beat describe to you what was going on in the whole tournament thing. And it's like that part is just so much more. I'm like, let's just stay there.
All right, we have to admit though, for as crazy as it was, I don't know about you guys, but I fucked with that one.
No, because you said Mugen's your favorite character. That man.
That's right. I'll give it to you. I like
Gavin's like, everybody gets one.
Everybody gets one.
You're not allowed to like anyone else.
That is my kind of man. He's like, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna drink my whatever, I don't even care. He's like, I'm gonna have my homies play music in the background, and I'm just gonna take out AK-47s and fucking blast them, just blast the fucking sword and God, like.
Yeah, dude, and I want to preference this. I want to make this clear. I don't like not like this show. I'm just nowhere near as like invested in it that like, let's say like a Tower of God, right? Where it's like I'm like vividly like waiting on the edge of my seat. It's this one. It's like I watch it and like it's dope, but it's just not a.
And I'm in the same boat. It's like there are better shows out there. Like that's the reality of it. This isn't like anything groundbreaking.
I'm sure everyone watching this is gonna love this episode.
But that's the thing. It's like,
but if it's your favorite show, that's fine. Yeah, that's totally cool, and that's valid.
And there's just reasons why you like
we don't like it doesn't make the show bad. And I again don't think the show is bad. No, it's just not a 10 for me.
Yeah.
No, I agree. But no, that guy though
was awesome. I'm not gonna lie, that guy's character, dude, he had, first of all, the hype squad behind him. He had a literal fucking orchestrated band behind him, and he's like, "You ready, boys?" And they're like, "Let's fucking do this." And they're like jiving,
they're going ham,
swinging their head back and forth. They're sweating their ass off. He's fucking.
I wonder if like
that's
like a deal breaker thing, where it's like those guys have to be with this man at all times for him to do any of that shit he was doing.
I feel like it has to be. If not, that man is not paying them enough.
That's what I'm saying. It's like if he's just like, guys, we're going. It's like, fuck this again. Like, I was gonna go to like my daughter's birthday today, and it's like, dude, they're gonna summon God. All right, we gotta take care of that.
God has
Fuck
a sword.
your daughter. And it's like, but it's like, there's so many. Come on, bro. Like, let me just get one day off. And it's like, I'm not paying you for it. Are you paying me?
That was funny. Yeah, that guy's just those abilities. Totally, dude. Like that guy was so fucking all over the place, because it was like, okay, he was like a bum. I think when he was first introduced, he was homeless.
Yeah,
and then so that was interesting. And then he's like, all right, boys, you ready? And it's like, let's do this. And he's got this whole band, like we just explained. Then he just whips out this entire inventory of like the fucking United States military fucking.
Yeah, it was like national
Swords and
treasury
bows and guns and
everything, dude. And then he
Amazing.
just summons like a thing, you know what I mean? And just starts shooting and throwing and fucking puking through it, like, and everything.
And then puts a mask on and throws himself into it and like eats the sword. And it's like, what the fuck is happening, bro?
That was the dopest. That was the dopest.
That was fucking insane, dude.
We also did, I guess, effectively squash my theory that Mori did in
Mori.
fact whoop ass in the warehouse or whatever. Which is fine, because then what's his name? Shark Boy came and just cleaned up house because like he's not working with the cult, but he is working with the cult.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Right,
He's like, I got my own reasons for wanting.
Yeah, this dude has just like he's just been like straight dicking it, bro. The entire show. Every time he's on screen, he's being some kind of asshole to some person who definitely doesn't deserve it for no fucking reason. He literally, when he met Mori, was gonna kill him like just because it was a Thursday night, because he was talking to ILPYO. Like that was it. That was the only motivation he had to do it. And fucking ILPYO didn't stop that fucking needle. Like it's like, what are you doing? Why? I get you want the key, but like it's not in Mori's fucking pocket. Like go find the key.
They're really hyping him up to be the next antagonist. Like really.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah, and if he's not like the antagonist, I mean, like I feel like he's gonna be the first person that like once the squad all levels up with our Chariot modes or whatever. Like that we're gonna like he's gonna it's like all right now we can fight, you know, because you know realistically we can't touch him. As much of a dick as it's like I want him to get his ass whooped, he's not getting his ass whooped now.
Yeah.
Nobody can really fuck with him except maybe Mira, because she has a Chariot thing. But
fair enough. One thing I really appreciated during the fight with Mori and ILPYO was the fact that Mori now incorporated the styles of Mira and Dewi, which I thought was really cool. And it was in typical like anime fashion, as you know, ILPYO is beating him. He's like, let me give you a laundry list of all the things you need to work on to potentially beat me. And Mori's like, okay, if I cross my D's, my T's, dot my I's, and add +2, I think I got this. Thanks. You know what I mean?
Which to makes sense because we find out, that he is basically trying to teach him how to fight or how to cover his weaknesses.
Yeah, this was one of the rare scenarios where that was his intention all along, was for him to pick up on it, which is funny.
But it's a little weird, at least to me, that he now has instantly picked up both their fighting styles, because my assumption is that both of their fighting styles aren't ones that you could just learn in a day, and that like if he hasn't been secretly practicing these things on the side, it's like, you know, it. So here's my thing, right? Like in Tower of God, it makes sense with a character like Bam, because it's established very early on that like this is an innate ability specific to Bam, that he like is very good at manipulating Shinsu to the point where he can mimic like techniques just from sight once, not perfectly and not to the level that whoever is using it at, but enough to perform it. I didn't know that Mori could also do that.
I just thought he was a Taekwondo expert.
Yeah, because he doesn't just, well, that's the thing is he's like, oh, I'm a Taekwondo expert, and ILPYO is like, your Taekwondo isn't good enough. That's not even like a manner of using a different kind of, he's just straight using different whole techniques. Mira and Dawi have whole ass different arsenals of tactics that supposedly Mori now just can use. And it's like, wait a minute. Like Dawi's like, oh, he's using mine too. And I'm like, yeah, my nigga, but didn't it take you like years to learn that? Like he literally just did that.
Didn't you train your entire life? And it's like, all right, just one fight out of nowhere, pulled it out of his left cheek. He's like, perfect.
That's just the lesson of the world, that life is not fair.
That's what I'm saying, bro. It's these protagonist coup niggas, bro. They got like ample talent just oozing in them.
Some people are just blessed, I guess, you know. And I guess to be fair, if we wanted to, you know, play devil's advocate to our own argument, that he did only use one style out of each of them. Like he only used the Black Tortoise out of Dewi's, and he only used the swordless maneuver out of
that's
Mira's,
true, which I
who has
think was
42
like
styles or 40
styles, which was like, but it's like. Again, I was under the assumption that Mira has trained so much with the sword that the only reason she acquired the swordless skill was because she started with a sword to begin with.
Course,
so it's like, and Dawi, I'm pretty sure the Black Tortoise one was like not the first thing he like, you know, he had to level up to that. So it's like,
which was ironic. Okay, so here we go. My nitpick. Okay, so this is ironic, right? He says that your weaknesses, at least the first two, are you suck at close range. And you
suck at close combat, your movements are too predictable,
Yeah.
and they take up too much of your stamina.
That was it. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, close range. I'm like, isn't kind of this the whole thing close range? You know what I mean? I'm like, he's just got a dragon kick all day and run around the ring. If that's not what he's gonna do, he's got to get close to you eventually. So like, that's a huge weakness. So that was interesting. So I thought it was funny. It was like, okay, perfect. Like my swordless thing, like that. You know, we're gonna compensate for that. That's fine. But then I thought it was funny when he was like, your second weakness is your predictability. And then he used Dewi's moves, to me, who are the most predictable moves ever, because he has to announce them and get into a very specific stance in order to load them up, which I thought was interesting because I'm like, that's the most predictable move out of everyone.
It's like a crazy telegraph of like, I'm gonna punch you right now. I guess the argument could be that like, the predictable as in he's only got his set of Taekwondo moves, so just by switching it up. But I understand what you're saying, and it's still a valid point ironic. Because I think it's like also none of the things I feel like were like technically actually conquered. Like he's like, oh, I'm countering my close combat deficiency with Mira's move, and it's like, but Mira's move is also actually pretty close combat. Like especially the swordless one, you have to be here at least to hit somebody, and it's like. I guess technically the Taekwondo, which is all about kicking, would actually be farther away. Would put you farther at a distance than.
We're obviously nitpicking. For anyone in the comments that's going to be like, close range is actually elbows and knees. I can already fucking I could already see it, bro. Like that's it. You came here for unfiltered opinion, and this is what you're getting. So I understand. Like I get it. Like I've done mixed martial arts, so I understand. Like close range,
which is Josh
would be like clinching, elbows, knees, like short hooks, etc. I get it. Compared to a kick or something, I just thought it was funny and ironic that like some of the moves that they used to compensate for the weaknesses were like very ironic. Maybe not Mira so much, but Dewi specifically was a very ironic move to use in order to.
Or like the third one when he's like, I'm gonna conquer for the fact that my moves take up too much of my energy.
What happened?
He just used the third Mori move, and I'm like, wait, if we're going sequentially here, wouldn't your third move be the one that takes up the most stamina?
Facts. Yeah, because the first one is Tiny Dragon, the second one is
Double Dragon, and the third one is like Ultra
Dragon.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if this math checks out here.
If my math is correct, 1 + 1 is 2, and then if your 3 is a 3, that's still higher than 2. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
I've never heard numbers that big. Can you repeat that?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's fucking real. Algebra we're doing.
But we do obviously realize that ILPYO was his intention from the start. I mean, he does want to win, but his intention from the start was to train or help enhance Mori's ability, which was really cool because we had this, this flashback of him when he's a couple years older than Mori, being that he was a small toddler while Mori was essentially
he's got this like
infant.
pseudo older brother. kind of
while Mori still had that full head of hair when he was a little kid, which I cracked up at. But
jealous.
Facts, right? But Taijin is like, hey, this is my grandson. Like, he's kind of a pain in the ass, but he's a great guy. So if you run into him one of these days, like, teach him a thing or two.
Because I'm gonna AWOL, so I need you to kind of like pick up the parenting slack for me and teach him how to like handle himself. Good.
Facts, right? He's like, good. You're like, what, 3? You got this.
I'm like, why are you telling this 3-year-old to raise your 2-year-old? What's happening here?
Hey. Yeah, that was funny. So, he does successfully teach him, like, that was the point, to make up for his deficiencies in that matter so that he could become a stronger opponent for him to sharpen his skills, because iron sharpens iron, and also just in general because he knows that, Mori is a good guy. He knows his grandfather was a good guy, and that if anyone needs to get a power spike, it's probably him rather than someone like Jagal, who's like a complete fucking psychopath, or half the other people in this tournament. So fair enough. So he does succeed in doing that, and he gets knocked down. Yeah. And then I don't know if I'm missing anything super relevant throughout the midst of the episode, but I wanted to talk about the end. And here comes another gripe of when this is a me one in particular, but whatever. Where ILPYO gets his Chariok essentially, because it's, I guess the god that he is borrowing it from is this wolf fox creature with like multiple tails.
I believe is. I think, I'm not sure, but I think that's the how like they're all related to some sort of myth or folklore. I think that's what they're alluding to here.
Okay, so would it be a fox?
Yeah.
Or gotcha. So fox. That's where we're going with. That's my answer. I'm sticking to it, Trebek. But anyway,
final answer.
Yeah, that's it. So he gets his awakened ability or borrowed power essentially when he is knocked down, and he's like, yeah, you learn, but he's like, I still got to win, and it was kind of cool because he goes like, oh, and just like fucking levitates up. And bro, I'm sorry, major gripe here, but I'm expecting him to come out of like the fire and the flames with like this fucking badass thing. Or even if he didn't change at all, he just kind of had the ability and he's able to do whatever. I gotta say, dude, they let me down with that fucking design because that was the most non-intimidating.
You guys were. I mean, I don't know. It didn't bother me that much.
I've ever fucking seen it in my life, dude.
You guys were like really
Gavin,
not having it.
agree with me on this one, please?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to sound like I was really nitpicking, but I'm like, bro, you literally just like a furry. Like now he literally just had fucking like little fucking cat ears and like a flaming
I feel
I don't care about
like
the cat ears. I just wish he looked doper. Like,
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
I feel like it's like a fox. Like, what else are you gonna do?
I guess. I don't know. I'm just thinking of like.
I don't know. Look at Naruto.
Yeah, I'm just. I don't know. I'm just saying,
He
like
look like a little bitch.
he just definitely looked like the like little like like cutesy like, oh, look at this like cute like humanoid thing with like fox ears or whatever, and like the the scruff on his head, and he's like but it's like it just didn't make him look intimidating at all. And I feel like with part of this like borrowed powers, the fact that you become like awesome and awe-inspiring, you know what I mean, by these abilities that you can do, right? It's like this one, even down to the chick with the giant fucking sword, right? Like you have this giant thing, or you have like this huge fucking megalodon shark, or even with Mira's where she gets like kind of like the headdress, like symbolizing like an ancient warrior or something like that. And like this one is just fox guy, you know what I mean? It's just
the
like
Chariot thing feels like it's like a merging of like it's borrowed power, right?
For
so
sure.
it's
So
a merging
merging
of
the fox,
the owner
yeah.
with the user,
For sure.
So like the fact that most of them just sort of end up taking on traits of whatever the person is or thing that they're borrowing power from. I actually think is what makes them look, because it's like they're not human anymore. They've ascended to this level of like not basic ass average fighter.
Yeah, for sure. No, I understand that. I guess because
like Mira's is quite literally just a headdress when you think about it. It's not that
sense.
dope.
It makes sense when it makes sense. In that right. And obviously it makes sense that he would have to combine in some way, shape, or form with the fox. So I understand that. I guess it's just like in terms of like, okay, what like fox features are we going to give you and whatever? And it was like the one they gave him was just like, ugh. It was like, I don't know. It was like, I personally, here's my thing, like, because I want to see more like if this is like a fighting thing, like I want to see more of like,
you just wanted to be
gritty.
nasty.
I'd rather him be like, you know what I mean? Like fucking assumes the head of like a dog or like some like crazy shit or something over that. But like, it doesn't have to be that, but just like, I guess what they did is like on the bottom of my list of things to be like, yo, sick character design. Like, let's make this guy look like he got his power up. And then he's just like, and he comes out and I'm just like, ugh. Like, I don't know. I didn't like it. That's my fucking thoughts on it. But I'm just saying.
All right, fair enough.
I'm just saying. That's my
To each his own.
Yeah,
You got to see
each
for effort.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. But anyway, are there any other points in this episode, relevant ones, that I'm missing right now?
No,
that we
but
wanna
I do feel like
flesh
just for me to try to make up some ground here, I do want to restate that the visually, this episode did look A1.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Like the actual fight between Jin Mori and ILPYO was beautiful. Beautifully animated.
Absolutely.
They even had those like, I guess what is classic for God of High School, like the inked like drawing moments when like they're both fucking clashing and shit.
Yes, yeah.
It's good.
And I'm
shit.
very interested in what information Mugen is going to give the squad, being that they're probably going to win this tournament,
That was the other thing that I liked, because it like threw my it didn't. It threw my expectation in a sense that I thought either A, Mori was just going to straight up lose, or he was going to win because he was going to unlock his chariot, but like he's going to do the whole what happened with Mira. But and I mean, I don't know. I guess technically one of those two outcomes could still happen. But A, I didn't think that ILPYO was going to get his chariot awakening this episode, and the fact that Mori hasn't. So like it definitely, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't like not where I saw them going with this. Which makes me think, because then like, when he awakens it, everybody's like, or Mugen and the cold and everything are like, yo, the key, you all feel that shit, that power level, he's over there. And it's like, but I feel like it's more of like a sensory thing. So like they don't actually know who the key is. Like they it's this like thing of, they're like, oh, we'll know it when it's here, or we'll know it when we sense it because it'll be this power. But it's like, if they've never felt that before, you know what I mean? They have no ground level to compare it to. So I feel like it's just these huge like shots or spikes in power level where they're like, oh fuck, that's like not a normal chariot user, getting his borrowed power. Like that's something to keep an eye on. And I think he very well might be up in the air, but I obviously kind of feel like Mori is the actual like key or supposed to be this.
Well, another thing to that, I feel like not anybody can just unlock a chariot because you literally have to get fucking shared power from a god and permission. So it's like,
I think Muju says that actually. He's like, some people like ask for it or try to get it their whole lives.
Yeah,
and, like,
so I feel like it's one of
don't.
those things where it's like so far and few people are able to reach it that like just the fact that somebody off of this tournament alone was able to unlock it, like that would give them more insight. Like this person is the key.
Well, I think his must be stronger than normal because Mira did the same thing and they didn't even bat an eye.
Oh yeah.
So it must be the fact that they're like they might have felt Mira's, but they're like, okay, that like again like sensory, like that power level feels kind of natural for a Chariot user spike, but his must have been like, whoa, fuck, like y'all feel that shit? I got bumps.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the Spidey senses are tickling, but interesting. I don't know.
But yeah, this was dope. Well, what is 2 more episodes?
Pretty sure it's 12 or 13, something.
And that was 10?
That was 10.
10. Okay.
Yeah, so we got 2 or 3 more episodes. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
See what happens.
We'll have to see what happens.
Look,
Anyway,
bro, if Mori goes God mode or whatever and kicks God in the face in the last episode, I'll be satisfied. Wrap this shit up with a bow.
yeah. They'll probably give him his ability soon. I would at least think so.
Imagine they don't, like episode 13, he's like about to get it and it cuts to black and it's like, read the webtoon. It's like, you fuck.
I wouldn't doubt it, to be honest.
You got me good. Anyway, folks, those are our thoughts on The God of High School episode 10. Like I said before, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell, sharing with your friends, and commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of this episode? It is totally fine to have different opinions than us, and I wager that most of you will if you're watching this.
Yeah, this will be interesting.
You know, it is, right? It is what it is. Take it with a grain of salt, you know what I mean? We're along for the ride, just as you guys are anyway, though. And let us know what you thought about our discussion as a whole. But until next time, folks, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the flip.
Peace.
Later.